Hello, good morning, and a warm welcome from our side. My name is Boris, and I'm the co-host of Chancen der KI, one of the largest AI community on LinkedIn Germany. The question of why ethical responsibility AI implementation matters cannot be overstated. This is why we have invited Auxane Boch to talk about understanding diversity in AI. Auxane is an expert in the field of artificial intelligence and ethics. She works at the Institute for Ethics in AI at the TAM in Munich. Auxane is also mentioned in connection with artistic research and media art, particularly in relation of her collaboration with media artist Naina Mook. Auxane, we are really happy to have you here and listening to your presentation. So see you in a bit. Stage is yours.
Thank you so much. All right. Well, hi, everyone. So today, as Boris said kindly, we're going to talk about diversity in AI, understanding what it means, and further on, maybe understanding why it's important and how to integrate it. So I hope this will spark some questions, but also maybe some solutions for you in your head in the corporate world or elsewhere. As a first step, Boris introduced me very nicely. I can give you a bit more information. I work at the Technical University of Munich at TUM. And I have a background in psychology and specifically cyber psychology, which is the interaction between human technologies. And I am the woman in AI Munich City. I'm very happy about that, to be fair. And that's the most important information probably for you. And that's why today I'm talking about diversity. And that's why diversity is such an important topic for us at Women in AI. So the first thing to understand when we talk about diversity is what we mean. Because when we talk about diversity, we usually hear about gender diversity. We usually hear about maybe ethnicity diversity. But diversity itself is just a distinction of an individual in a group, which means that a person with glasses like me in a group of person without glasses be diverse. And it is therefore very context dependent. I think that's a very important point. So diversity that we're talking about, the diversity we're talking about here in AI doesn't have to be only gender or ethnicity related. The concept of diversity can also be demographic and professional. That's usually what we call intersectionality in diversity, which means that according to the American Psychological Association, diversity is a specific individual criterion, such as age, gender, sexuality, race, ethnicity, religion, ability, and more within a group. And it can also be about, therefore, backgrounds and trainings and experiences. For instance, I'm a psychologist working in AI. I have met a few, but not so many. So this is the first example that I hope helps you understand the concept of better. So diversity can be any type of diversity. Now, why is it important to talk about diversity in AI or in any context? Because usually it focuses, when you talk about it, on including historical marginalized groups in society within, for instance, AI technology. When we talk about historically marginalized groups, we can talk, for instance, about groups that were put aside or not just marginalized, but also persecuted. And that can refer, for example, to apartheid. So this kind of data is still very present because those things happened. So we'll see the data part later on, but that's to give you an idea of what is a historically marginalized group. Also, we can see that women have not always been represented in different layers of society. And in some layers, in some contexts, they are considered marginalized groups. So they were considered marginalized groups. And those marginalized groups and those situations can evolve with societal changes. As we see, women are more and more present in the tech sector, for instance. And we can address this historic pattern of discrimination. Now, a very important point is that first, we need to know what patterns we need to address, right? So it's very important to be aware of the different issues we might have. And again, I'm saying this key word, which is intersectionality, and that's an important word when we talk about diversity. It's not just about, for instance, a woman or a skin color. It will be a bunch of socioeconomical factors, personal factors, personal characteristics that go all together and might put a person in a given context in a marginalized position. So it is defying the simplisticness, let's say, of categorization. Now, let's talk about this a bit more in the context of AI. AI is first trained on data sets, and then we develop the models, and then it gives us outputs. Of course, it might be more complex than that, but if we were to schematically talk about it, it would be following kind of those steps. So when we talk about the training data set, we obviously need to have a representation in there. So we'll talk a bit more data after. In the model development, we're going to define which factor will have which weight. And later on, the outcomes that the AI will bring might impact a lot of different layers of society as we know today. AI is broadly used, and so depending on how we develop it and with what we develop it and we train it, it might impact social, economical, and political domains. This raises questions about how do we address diversity in this context. There are already some stakeholders, policymakers, that thought about it, of course, and created specific laws addressing the diversity and bias issue, because bias would be the keyword the most associated with diversity, of course. And this would be, for example, the New York City Local Law 144. It is also very much mentioned in the European Union AI Act that will be finalized very soon. And it addresses biases in AI and promotes diverse teams to reinforce the positive vision of diversity. So here, as you can see in the, I hope you're following me well, and we have different things. We have the data set where diversity is important. We have the model development where diversity is important. And something we'll touch much less upon today is the output and the bias the output can create. But that's a question for another day. And to address this, we first need to talk about the data itself. So the lack of diversity in data set can lead to performance differences and discriminations. For instance, in employment or in health sectors, those two people can very much relate to, which is why we use those examples a lot. Let me give you a more precise example. So imagine a hospital, an AI that will help with treatment choice for patients. And this AI is trained on the historical data of this hospital. So all the decisions that have been made in the past by doctors in this hospital for treatment. We know that as a society, we are biased and we have been biased, and those can change. As we've seen earlier, the biases can change, the discriminations can change, the marginalization can change with societal changes, but they are still present in this data set, since it is a historical data set that has everything that the doctors have done since the moment we started collecting those data. Now, I am a woman, and this is a real life example. I go to the hospital, and let's imagine I have a heart condition. You would imagine the AI would inform the doctor to give me a heart medication. Actually, it probably will. But now, because I'm a woman, the AI adds that I should have a medication to reduce my water, how do you say, my bloating. There you go, that's the term, my bloating. But if a man goes This doesn't happen. And it's very interesting. There was an example that was presented at a conference in Paris by the Parisian hospital, um, that the AI was actually very biased towards this for aesthetical purposes. So this has nothing to do with healthcare, but very much about the fact that women shouldn't have bloated ankles. And they usually do when they have a heart condition. Men do as well. But for aesthetical purposes, the AI is biased. And because doctors in the past have prescribed some anti-bloating medication to women, then if it's a woman patient, the AI will also advise to go for an anti-bloating medication. When again, this is not a health-related purpose. This is the kind of disparities that you can see. Now, this is a fun example. It doesn't seem like much, but imagine this on a scale level and for discrimination. So here we're talking about disparities more than discrimination. But now imagine a racist AI. That would be a big problem. So the diversity, inclusion, and representativeness in the data set is crucial to have good outcomes and fair outcomes. Fair outcomes refer, for instance, to having the same chances and same positive outputs, same performance of the AI for each population, at least for population that are targeted by the system, because it's also okay to say, my AI is not well trained for this and this population, for instance, neurodivergent populations, but you have to state it from the get-go. And you say, no, my data set is not adequate for these people. And then you're getting the issue because then neurodivergent persons know to not use this AI that is not meant for them. So, because sometimes, sorry, I'm just to add a layer to this, sometimes you want to bias AI. For instance, if I'm buying an AI that is meant to play with children, I do want it to be biased and be trained on children data. I don't really care about adults data in there. So you see, it's the question of what's my target group, sorry, and what the data I need to use for the AI to be trained on a good data set that will fit with my expected outcomes. And in this group, I need to ensure diversity, inclusion, and representativeness. This also pertains to language, for example. Anyway, moving on from this point, the failure to ensure diversity would result in unequal access to resources and unequal treatment of individuals. And again, I want to highlight here that in healthcare, in agricultural settings, or such important education questions, this is extremely, extremely relevant. And those, in everything, of course, but I would say those would be the primary ones, and in anything relating to democracy. Anyway, and we touched this point of data, usually, especially in Germany, we would have a strong backlash as, yes, but where do you get this data? And that's a very fair point. I'm saying in Germany, but I could say in EU because we have the GDPR, so the general regulation for data. And that's the question of privacy. So how do we balance out this problem of the diversity of data and the privacy of people at the same time? We need to make trade-offs. We need to discuss on a case-by-case scenario. And we have a new regulation called the Data Act that hopefully will answer some of those questions. Now, moving on to the second point, you remember I was talking about training data first, and then to talk about the model. So the model would be the algorithm chosen, why do you choose it, etc. And we're not going to get into why you choose an algorithm, but rather who develops the algorithm and the model. And in this case, having a diverse team brings various perspectives on the model, how you develop it, why you develop it, which weight has which factors, etc. So it's a very important point to have a diverse perception in there. Why? Just very simply because if you have a person, for instance, like me from psychology, a person from engineering, a person from computer science, a person from history, a person from sociology, a person from anthropology, a person from medicine, you will have all those individuals with different concerns, and they will see different things of priority. And those priorities are all important, but they might not all come to one person, if that makes sense. So if you have a diverse team, you can address much more issues at the design stage, at the data stage, but also at the design stage, where you're evaluating which factor has which weight. A very simple example would be the credit scoring. For credit scoring, we need to give clear factors to specific economical points, personal points, etc. And as a psychologist, I would say a very important thing is to not intrude on people's personal life, for example, by using social data. But maybe a person from finance would tell me, yes, but I need to know the lifestyle, the reliability. I'm just inventing here. Don't imagine someone ever told me that. But let's imagine, right? Someone tells me, no, we need the data from the social media, everything public, because we can assume if the person is actually trustworthy or not. Um, and as psychologists, I'd say, no, actually, you do not, because this is too private. So you see, if we have different perspective as a woman, I might also put forth some questions of birthrights and things like that. And how does that impact the credit scoring? And men might also see specific issues. So it's every diversity is important in there. So involving human social scientists, diverse individuals, promoting stakeholder engagement, the AI life cycle promotes inclusivity and ethical consideration flagging. And that's where diversity links, of course, to ethics. It's an ethical point. And also diverse background means, of course, expertise background, but also socioeconomic backgrounds, because we all have the experience we have. And it means we might not have the experience others have. So everyone's opinion is important. I very much hope that I just convinced you of this. And if not, I'm very happy to discuss this. Now, finally, if we talk something I hear a lot of is it's very hard, for instance, to have women in tech teams because they're just not very much here. So they're not, for instance, entering the call for positions and things like that. I can't say this is wrong, of course, but to help, if that can be a good advice for you based on research, what seems to be working the best is to have mentoring programs. And I'm very sure this goes further than gender diversity. So if you have mentoring programs within your company, you can actually follow this culture of bringing in more diverse populations and therefore having a better representation in your teams. And if you have a better representation, have better models, having better AI systems, more inclusive, maybe more ethical as well, and hopefully a better just thinking process throughout the entire thing. So a final conclusion on the benefits of diversity in AI, and then we can get to the conversation part of this. Diversity throughout the AI lifecycle leads to more ethical and inclusive AI tools because you get multiple perception. About that as well, if you're building an AI for a specific population, such as a care-specific population, dementia patients, autistic children, etc., I would urge you to test and to involve those populations from the get-go in your life cycle to get their opinion of what they actually need and how they need it and which fear they might have about the AI. If you involve them from the ideation moment, before you even develop the model, before you get the data, you might actually have a tool that works even better for the given purpose of the tool. Then, if you have a diverse team, it addresses the need of diverse populations and mitigates foreseeable risks, such as biases. We always know that there are unforeseeable risks. The foreseeable ones is our responsibility to mitigate. And then diverse teams provide unique viewpoints on tension points, such as collection, use, and privacy, very important in AI, as we know. And finally, in inclusive AI development benefits society as a whole because the impact of AI is everywhere. Thank you very much for your attention. Boris, please come back.
He is indeed. Thank you very much for the insightful presentation, Auxane. And yeah, Really looking forward to the discussion. Anybody already got involved or has same issues or probably prevented them by using techniques or ideas you already showed to us. So let's move on.
Awesome. So I see that we have in the chat someone that is asking or stating the challenge with this hospital and bloating medication examples is that we expect AI to be unbiased, yet its creator inherently carry biases. As a result, the training data is trained with bias right from the beginning. Exactly. You're right. If I'm right, that's Coralie that said that.
This is the question, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, Coralie, you're extremely right. That's the point of historical data, right? So when we use the data from all the past experience in a given setting, such as a hospital, we're also taking all of the human bias that we've had throughout the ages of this data collection and feeding it to our AI that then will have the similar biases. The expectation is a very good point. We should never expect AI to be anything that we don't make it be, if that makes sense. An AI is a tool that we make.
Sounds good. Thank you very much. Any more questions? Please feel free to use the chat. Well, in the meantime, I do have a question, if you allow me to ask. Do you have any studies, or then when it comes to economical issues? I mean, setting up a diverse team could be, I think, a bit of, let's say, it needs a lot of more time, more resources if I have various perspectives. So can you maybe tell us just an estimation when it comes to the setting up the team, like the right way on looking from the diversity point of view, or setting it up like the old-fashioned way where you don't take it into account, what in fact it could cost more or less? You know what I mean?
So I can't give you numbers because that is not my job. But what I can give you is examples of why this would have a return on value. So the return on investment. The thing is that we have a historical, let's say, baggage to see that when a technology does not do what it said does, people end up not really using it. They might even get a bit mad about it, especially if it's an expensive technology, which usually in the new technology sector, when it's new, it's a bit expensive from the get-go. It doesn't have to be, but for big things can be. That's the first point of, if you're saying your AI can work for everyone in everything the same way, and it doesn't, you're in trouble. Let's just talk about the story a while back about Google recognition, image recognition for faces, that was recognizing Black people as gorillas. This was an enormous backlash that, of course, had also economical impact. So I would say you're avoiding some risks by doing that, which are reputational but also economical. Now, if your product is better, hopefully it has a better uptake. You can also broadcast the reputational positive impact of having a diverse team without doing any greenwashing or ethics washing, of course, but encouraging others, showing best practice. And, we live now in a world that, my personal opinion is that we're evolving towards something more aware. I think with social media, with all of this tendencies to have all the information, more of the information always posting and reading and investigating even what companies are doing and how they're doing it, I think it cannot be bad as a return on invest to build a diverse team, if that makes sense.
Ida, thank you very much for answering this question as complete as possible. Perfect. In the meantime, somebody asked an additional question, which I'll just pull up here.
Mm-hmm. So, do you think that diversity teams building for AI should be assigned different weights based on the objectives pursued? For example, should doctors carry added weight in developing a medical AI application while psychologists hold more weight for an AI applied to human resources? Thank you so much for this question, Coralie again. Thank you so much. Yes, I think that you're very right. So it's the question about enrolling the right stakeholders as well. So we have the first layer that is to build your team with. If you're developing a medical application, I would hopefully expect that you have a medical personnel in there who's able to give you a medical perspective. Whether it's on the advisory board, I've seen that in some companies where they're developing something very specific to a type of therapy, and they have doctors specialized, hyper specialized in this therapy in their advisory board overlooking at their work. Whether it is in the team itself, so have someone that have a background that allows them to talk to the practice of such therapy. When we talk about medical devices, we also enter an entire new world of medical device regulation. If it's for diagnosis, we also have another regulation for this, an extra one. So it's not another one, it's a layered one. And that's just on the EU level. Each country on top of it will have its own regulation expectations. So going out of the medical realm and going more into the not medical, therefore less regulated areas. If we talk about human resources, fantastic example. I would hope very much that you have an organizational psychologist and HR people, HR personnel involved in the team. I would hope at least one psychologist, you're right. And then through workshops and through consultation, having personnel that works with those kind of AIs. Because again, the end user is the person you want to be sure that is included perfectly in there, but also what they use it for. So in human resources, we're aware of bias problems, make sure that those are addressed, and also look at the population it will apply on, etc., etc. So yes, short answer or long answer short, yes, you're right. Every different application needs different expertise. I do believe, though, that we still need a core diverse expertise, and then we add on the layered expertise needed. Sorry, very long answer.
Long question, long answer. Fair enough. Thank you very much. So looking on the clock, we probably would have time for just a quick question, if it shows up. Other than that, would like to make a little bit of advertisement for the next talk. We initially set up, Birgit and I, that we want to have this new format establishing this year, talking about AI in certain ways, introducing and inviting interesting guests like today. So we are looking at the end of March for another talk, and this will be announced shortly within our AI community. If you're listening to us today and are not already member of the AI community Chancen der KI, then please feel free to get in touch with us. You find us via search bar, or can maybe drop the link in the chat.
All right. I think we're right on time.
We're on time. So thank you to you, Auxane. It was really, really interesting. and really important topic, which is ongoing. It's nothing where we can just tick the box and say, okay, well done. So very important to keep that in mind when we talking about AI diversity and teams and development of AI. Great. Thank you everyone out there for listening, and see you soon. Nice day. Have a nice weekend. Bye.
Bye-bye.